Hi, it's a little time after the last video. I'm going to upload them together, so this will just jump straight from the last. This is the lid to my solar accumulator project. I was going to work out the position of the various things that are going to go into it. Now the inverter, with its 220 volt output, its position is set because of where it's got to go in the case. What I've done is basically taken the end off the inverter, cut a hole which is the same size as the inverter frame, and then screwed the end plate back on this side of the case, so the inverter sits in the box. I've got to make some rear anchor points for it yet. I need to put some spacers and drill some holes in there. Unfortunately the case is angled slightly, and I didn't fancy scraping off a few thou from the bottom of the case, so the case, it tips up very slightly at the back, but that doesn't matter. This is the inverter as it's going to sit in the case. There's sufficient space alongside here for the cells, and then space on top of that for all of the electronic gubbins that are going to go in here as well. There is a fan in the inverter, so I'll be using a fan grill. It's already got a fan grill on here, so it draws air in there, and I'm thinking that that will fit there quite nicely on the way out, so air will go in through here. I'm going to duct it on the inside of the casing so it can duct all the way around past the cells and then back out through this thing on that side. That's the plan. So I'm going to use 80mm fans because they're small and they're compact and they're cheap. So that's the main case. I've got an awful lot of stuff to fit in here, but I'm a bit OCD with layouts of stuff, so I've spent ages musing over what I'm going to lay out on the top here and where it's going to go. So this is the lid. It lifts up this way. Unfortunately, I'd have preferred it if it lifted that way, but it is what it is. Now I've decided that that can live right there, right in the middle. There's a space almost made for it where the manufacturer's name is, so that is going to go there. And then these are dual USBs. They've got little voltmeters in them, which is pointless, but that's how they come. So I did think perhaps one of these, I've got two of these, one of those each side, and then I was thinking of the 12 volt power sockets, a couple of those in there as well. Again, both sides. I'm not sure which way around to put them. These have got little covers which will get in the way and annoy me. These have also got covers which pop up, which is rather nice to stop things from disappearing down there, because that would just blow a fuse. But actually it means that you can't put a switch the other side of it, because when it's open you can't get to the switch, which is a bit of a pain. But I don't know which way around to put those. I'm thinking perhaps that way, like that. The alternative is to put the 12 volt power sockets, which won't be used so much as the USBs, into the end of the casing, just above where the fan goes, so kind of like we'll go in there on the case. So I could potentially do that, and that would fill that empty space there. So that's something to look at. They're going to have switches. I've got these little switches. I want each one of these to be switched on and off independently of each other, simply because they consume power. Not much, a few milliamps, but you know, it all adds up. So I thought independent switches on those, so if I'm only using two sockets I can switch them off. And I also thought that it would be nice to put some 5.5 2.1 DC power jacks. I was thinking maybe for lighting. So this is going to be camping, really, for like camping, a camping power supply unit, and to be able to have camp lights plugged straight into this would be really helpful, rather than having battery powered stuff everywhere. It's only a case of hanging a light up. I've got a couple of modified mains colour changing light bulbs which are remote control, which are quite handy for that sort of stuff. they use about 150 milliamps at full brightness, and they give sufficient light for in the tent. So my thought was perhaps put a couple of DC jacks in here, which would give me a nice sensible output, so that I can have USB stuff, DC power jacks, and then if I need more power, then perhaps put the DC jacks on the ends, so that then they'd be kind of out the way, but available should they be needed. The only other thing that I'm going to need to incorporate is a charge system, so that I can charge it via solar. I'm going to be using the MPPT charge modules, which is under this pile of stuff here. These things here. These are still a bit experimental. They seem to have stopped producing current, which is a bit strange. At least large amounts of current. They've dropped down to about 300 milliamps, which is going to take forever to charge a 34 amp hour battery pack. But I've got a feeling that the battery pack was getting quite near its terminal voltage anyway. So looking at the charge profile, its charge current would drop off as the battery neared completion. So that they'll be incorporated, and I'm going to use DC power jacks just to use those, because they're only handling 5 amps, and a DC power jack, less than 5 amps, 3 amps actually, and a DC power jack is completely fine for that, and it's nice and quick and easy just to stuff in the hole. Though the power jacks are going to be on the end of the charge, this end opposite the 220 volt output. I've already decided that, and that's how it's going to work. What else am I going to incorporate? Oh yes, I'm going to use the battery's BMS as kind of like the charge controller for fast charging it on mains. The BMS that I've got has an 8 amp capacity charge circuit built into it, so I can charge it via an 8 amp power source. So I could use like a laptop power brick, and when the BMS reaches its 4.28 volts per cell per group, it shuts the power off. So okay, it overcharges them a little bit, but it's going to be used kind of like in a cycle use anyway, so it's not going to be held at those voltages for very long, because as soon as the sun's gone in and we've got the lights on, the power's going to disappear again. So that's the plan. It'll be a short-term use, kind of like emergency power or camping power supply, which is really what I'm designing it for. So it's just really finalising the layout and then getting it all together, which I will bring you along for the ride as and when I get around to doing these things. So I'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching.